Good morning and welcome to the Promise Conference. This conference is hosted by Laredo Community College, sponsored by the National Science Foundation, and also organized through the Texas Hispanic Serving Institutions Consortium. So we have different groups that are here today. We have some Laredo Community College faculty, some Laredo Community College administrators. We have our guests and our attendees from the consortium that are here. So welcome to all. They represent very many different institutions. We also have some of our students here from the MAIS chapters, and we're going to be interacting with them. We have representatives from the Kickstarter, Arizona, that we're a part of, and we'll be talking with them as we go along. We also have students from the high schools, and we have Cigarroa. Cigarroa, good morning. Cigarroa High School. Good morning. Good morning. And we also have students from Martin High School, and then we're going to have other students from Martin High School joining us a little bit later. So Dr. Ricardo Solis, if he's already here. Okay, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Nora Garza, and I'm with Laredo Community College, and I have been here for 40 years, if you can imagine that. Seen a lot of changes, seen a lot of improvements, and so I am the president of the consortium at the present time. And while we're waiting for Dr. Solis, he's not going to come at all? Okay, all right, well, Dr. Solis is not going to be able to be here with us right now. He got called to another meeting that had not been announced.
He's here already.
Okay, he did walk in. Yes, no? All right. Jose, can you please check if Dr. Solis is in the back, please? While we're waiting, I'll introduce you to some of the folks from the consortium. Our past president is Dr. Agnes Flores from Texas A&M Kingsville. Dr. Gloria White from St. Edwards is a secretary. Julia Garcia from Coastal Bend is our money lady, our treasurer. All right, and Evie Gonzalez from Texas State is our incoming and vice president at the present time. All right, Dr. Solis? All right. Yes. Yes, and Mr. Armando Saliva from University of Incarnate Word. Dr. Solis.
Good morning. Sorry for my late entry here. I was preoccupied with a really interesting group of immigrants, primarily from Mexico, that are here at this big event here that we have, and they're here to revalidate their degrees. So it's very touching when you see such an assertive, ambitious group, and this is what immigrants are all about. And that for me was very touching. So it was really hard to get away from this class, but again, I know all of you come from many areas, from different institutions, to come and celebrate the Promise from HSI Association as well. And I know you're here to convene, to be able to identify the challenges and, more importantly, the opportunities that we can provide for students that are badly needed in the STEAM and STEM areas. And for that, I congratulate you. That is the fastest, most important field. And here at Laredo Community College, we're very excited to be part of that, and I just wanted to welcome you to be here. I'm going to, of course, use my 30-second advertisement about the campus. I think most of you have had a chance to see it last night. I recognize a lot of faces from last night. We have quite a bit of history here at Laredo Community College. We're close to 11,000 students per semester, growing very rapidly, just like the entire Southwest border region is. We have quite a bit of history. We have over 140 years that we've been here as a campus. Well, not as a college, as a campus, because this used to be a fort. The campus, of course, we've been here now for 70 years as an institution. But again, I just wanted to congratulate you for being here and taking your time to be part of this very important initiative. And I know you have a long day and to work on your mission, which is to gather the challenges and, more importantly, the opportunities for minorities to be part, and students to be a part of this very innovative and growing field. And thank you for coming here. And Dr. Nora, I know you've already started, and I hope I did not interrupt.
No, we started.
All right, okay. But I'll be glad to answer any questions. I'll be out here throughout the day, in and out. I have another 2 different events going on here on campus, like I mentioned, with this group of immigrants that are very interested in being part of the American culture, the American way. And so I look forward for this event today, and thank you for coming. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Solis. Well, I think everyone that has arrived already filled out the quantitative survey. Well, we're gonna, if anybody that arrives later, we'll be filling them out as we go throughout the day. But I want to go ahead and get started with Dr. Laura Rendon's presentation. Is she here already? Okay. Dr. Laura Rendon began her career in Laredo Community College. She was my boss. I was one of the team for the people that are here that are part of my team. And also I was part of the team, the co-project director, assistant project director was Dr. Amaury Nora. They went on to work on their doctorates. The students that are here from Cigarroa and from Martin High, these are folks that started here. We started here. And we moved on and have gotten our degrees. They have too. She has an exciting book. You can read more about her in the actual brochure and the program. But without further ado, Dr. Laura Rendon, Professor Emeritus from University of Texas, San Antonio.
All right, good morning again. Buenos dias, are you awake? Okay, good, good. I want to especially welcome the students. We do this for you. How many here from Martin High School? All right, stand up, Martin High School. There you go, one guy. Just so you know, I'm a Tiger legend. I'm not sure you know what that means, but I am. What about Cigarroa? People here? Stand up, kids. These are the future scientists of the United States. Thank you for coming. And thanks to all of you for inviting me to share the work that I've been doing with regard to STEM education. I want to start by just saying a little bit about how my interests evolved in terms of STEM degrees. I'm from Laredo, born and raised here. And this is a house that I spent a lot of time as I was growing up, 517 Galveston. And I took a picture of that house. It's still there. As you can see, we didn't have very much. I grew up in poverty. My parents never finished high school. My mom and dad separated when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And my mom had to work to really put food on the table. And I can remember that there was this restaurant, it's now gone, it was called the Western Grill down on San Bernardo. And my mom would work there from 10 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning for $15 a week plus tips. My dad was a construction worker. And we struggled to move forward with our lives and, to have good clothes. And, I remember when I was at Christian Junior High School, I made the most important decision of my life. That day in my English classroom, the counselor came in with forms, lots of forms, and said, today you're going to decide as to whether you want to go on the academic or the vocational track. And I raised my hand because, I'm, 13, 14 years old. And I said, what is academic track and what's vocational track? And she said, if you go on the vocational track, that means that when you graduate from high school, you're going to go straight into the job market. You're going to get a job. If you go on the academic track, straight from high school, you're going to go to college. So for me, it was an easy decision to make. And I said, okay, I want to be a teacher. I want to go the academic track. I want to go to college. So that was the first major decision of my life. I come home and I'm talking to my mom, who is sleepy and tired, estaba cansada. She just had a hard day. And I said, voy a ir al colegio. And she looked at me and she goes, estás loca. No, you're crazy. How can you think of that? That's not for people like us. Eso no es para nosotros. ¿Qué te crees tú? So I was kind of sad about that. But I did not let that day deter my dreams. Somewhere inside of me, I knew that maybe she didn't understand college because she had never been to college, and nobody in our family had been to college. So I'm the first in my family to go to college and to get a college degree. So the question is, how do people like me, who grew up poor in Laredo, Texas, go from the barrio to getting a college degree? And not just a college degree, an Associate of Arts degree. I came to Laredo Community College and got an AA at San Antonio College. And then I got a bachelor's degree from the University of Houston. I did become a teacher. I taught at Kristen for 5 years. And then from then, a master's degree from Texas A&I, Kingsville. But then the big reward, the PhD, the doctorate from the University of Michigan. How does someone who grows up in Laredo, Texas, or in Brownsville, or in El Paso, or in McAllen, with parents that don't know anything about college, how does she or he grow up to go all the way from that barrio of having nothing, to now having anything that I want? How does that happen? How do people from Laredo or anywhere in South Texas, in poor communities, become scientists? And there's lots of them. I wanted to become a scientist. I never got to that particular goal, and now I know that I could have, and I can tell you a story about why that happened. But I still did very, very well. But my interest now is, how do we get more of you students back there to become científicos Latinos, the future architects, the future biotechnologists, the future computer scientists, the people who are going to find the cure for cancer and Alzheimer's and diabetes? How do we get you into that marketplace of ideas to become científicos Latinos? So we did a study of individuals who actually got a STEM degree. They have either a master's or a doctorate in a STEM degree. And we wanted to find out, how did they do it? How did they do it? And here's a quote from this particular individual. His name is Rodolfo Jimenez, and he says, the term scientist was never used in South Texas because no one had witnessed anyone living his or her life as a scientist. But even with the lack of knowledge of what it entailed to be a scientist, I feel my upbringing in a Latino family prepared me to become a scientist. So it's interesting. How do you become a scientist when no one around you is a scientist? When no one in your community is a scientist? How do you do this? Well, this young man did it, as well as some others that I'm going to talk about today. How did they do it? This is our new book. It's an edited book with Vijay Kanagala. It's called The Latino Student Guide to STEM Careers. It just came out this year. And those of you students that are interested in becoming a scientist, I really recommend this book because everything is there for you. Links, books, ideas, how to get into college, how to get financial aid, everything is in there. So I'd really recommend you, just go to Amazon and Google it and order the book. So part of that book includes 14 essays that were written by students just like you who earned a doctorate or a master's degree or a bachelor's in a STEM degree. And we analyzed those essays. They wrote about their journey, how they made it through to get a STEM degree. What was that journey like? And so we analyzed those narratives or testimonios. They're in chapter 8, and there's 14 of them. We had 10 females and 4 males. 8 of them were the first in their family to go to college. And you see there that one got a BA. That person finished and is now going on for a master's, I understand. 7 masters, 6 PhDs, mostly Mexican American. So here are the names of the people who wrote these essays for us. Stephanie Alvarez Ventura. She has a degree in archaeology and environmental studies. Alejandro Araiza, a degree in mathematics. Diana del Ángel, a degree in environmental studies. Julieta del Bosque, she's in biology and going into medicine. Shimora Elias Argote, she's in biochemistry, microbiology, and biotechnology. Dana Garcia, zoology and physiology. Carla Gutierrez, industrial engineering. Rodolfo Jimenez, cellular and molecular biology and biochemistry. Ricardo Martinez, mathematics. Olivia Moreno, environmental science and engineering and industrial engineering. And Elvia Alicia Niebla, soil chemistry. Semarthy Quiñones Soto, microbiology. Marina Suarez, geology and geosciences. And Simón Treviño, biological and biomedical scientists. Now, most of these individuals are just like you back there. They started knowing nothing about what it took to get these degrees. Some of them needed a lot of financial aid. They didn't have parents that could tell them what it takes to get into these STEM degrees, and yet they finished, and I'm so proud of their accomplishments. How did they do it? So we looked at their stories, and one of the theories that we considered is called counter storytelling, where basically in our society there are stories, there are narratives, there are ideas that are very entrenched. Sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not true. But even when they're not true, we say, oh, okay, that must be true, even when they're not true. For example, there is a story that only perseverance and determination can count as determinants of success. That if you only work hard, that's all it takes. It's not written anywhere, but we kind of believe it, because we've heard it over and over again. Another story is that if we have too many adversities, we cannot succeed. So that if you grow up in poverty, that if you had violence in the home, that if you had all of these things that got into your life that are negative, that somehow you cannot succeed. That's also out there, okay? We also used the approach of the personal stories, the testimonios of the students, because we wanted to hear from them what was important to them. So while there is an entrenched narrative, a story that people believe, there's a counter narrative, a counter story. And here's a book that just came out this year. It's called Supernormal. It's written by Meg Jay. She's a clinical psychologist at the University of Virginia. And what Meg Jay has done is she has studied the lives of famous people and ordinary people who have experienced a lot of adversity. The adversities in my life was that, as a child, I saw my family break up. I experienced poverty. I didn't go to, schools that had all the libraries. I didn't have parents that could take me to Europe to study or any of that. So what she has found out is that most of us, nearly 75% of us, experience some kind of adversity by the age of 20. But what she indicates is that despite these adversities, despite all the bad things that happen to us in our lives, we can still make it. We can still thrive. We can still be successful. So don't let those adversities get in your way. Another kind of story is that, there is the belief that in some places that students who come from low-income backgrounds cannot succeed. And that has been disproven. I'm an example of that, a clear example of that. And another example is math teacher Jaime Escalante, who in East LA, which at the time was an impoverished area of Los Angeles, taught kids calculus. Now, he was teaching calculus, and not just calculus, but AP calculus, to young people whose parents cleaned hotel rooms and schools, to young people whose parents were farm workers. And there are some who believe that, these kids can't learn calculus. Look at where they come from. But Jaime Escalante said, no, I can teach these students. And he did such a good job that these students passed the AP calculus test, and ETS and the College Board were like, how can that be? And they came back and they had the students retake the test. There's a really good movie that I would recommend. It's called Stand and Deliver, that details what math teacher Jaime Escalante did. I have a short video of that I want to show you, and I hope that that this will go well. Okay. Maybe not. See, some of you that are doing technology, figure out how this doesn't, we don't have these kind of things. Okay. Put the whole thing there. Volume. Bring the volume.
Stand and deliver. He took on the students that others had given up on. Tough, poor kids from East LA. He showed them how to excel and how to deliver. His story tonight from NBC's George Lewis.
To watch Jaime Escalante at Garfield High was to witness a master motivator at work. Telling inner city students you can succeed if you have the desire. In Spanish, ganas.
Ganas, the key word over here. And ganas means determination, discipline, hard work. We need students with ganas.
His students from a poor Latino crime-ridden neighborhood noted for failing schools consistently scored well in the advanced placement calculus exam. But in a controversy depicted in the movie Stand and Deliver, test administrators couldn't believe the results and accused 18 of Escalante's kids of cheating. Escalante, played by Edward James Olmos.
Those scores would have never been questioned if my kids did not have Spanish surnames and come from barrio schools. You know that.
When his students retook the test and did better the second time around, Escalante became a hero.
He's not going to let you down. If you have the desire, if you have the ganas, he'll be there 24/7 for you.
In 1991, 6 of his former calculus students landed summer jobs at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. One of them, Thomas Valdez, is there today, working on fuel cell technology.
I think Escalante actually put that spark in me that made me really want to become a scientist.
A function of, let's say, K, right?
Another Escalante student, Erica Camacho, whose parents were janitors, got a PhD in calculus and is now teaching at Arizona State University.
The impact that he had in my life and in the life of all his other students is like a domino effect. It's not going to stop here. It's going to go through many generations, and it's going to impact a lot of people.
And there you have the true legacy of Jaime Escalante, a whole lot of former students who overcame the odds.
You got it. You're the best.
George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Okay, so you can bring me back to. Okay, so very briefly, we did have some theoretical frameworks that we were working with as we analyzed these essays that these individuals wrote. One of them is Tara Yoso's community cultural wealth model, where basically she indicates that even though people think that in poor communities there's nothing going on, actually there's a lot going on. Those communities have family capital. They have social capital, navigational capital, resistant capital, linguistic capital, and aspirational capital. Another theoretical framework that we used was my theory of validation, which basically says that the more encouragement and affirmation and support students have, the more likely they're going to succeed. The more students have someone, for example, like Jaime Escalante working with you, the more likely you're going to succeed. So let's talk about how these students succeeded. First of all, they did experience challenges. They did have these adversities, these things that got in their way, but somehow they moved forward despite these adversities. They did experience poverty. They experienced racism and discrimination. They had to figure out, how to learn the world of the new America when they came from places like El Salvador and Bolivia. And coming here as immigrants, they had to figure the new world of America. They had deaths in their family. They, grew up sometimes in unsafe communities. So they did have these early life issues and challenges that they had to deal with. In addition, they talked about academic challenges. Sometimes students had A's in high school, and when they came to college, they found out, oh my God, I've got to study harder than I did in high school. They had to learn English in some cases. They had to learn how to write and publish and present. They had to figure out their time management and study skills. So they did have these challenges as well. Another challenge had to do with family responsibilities. They wanted to go to college, but they also had to figure out how to help their family back home. And that's something I had to do. When I went to college, I always sent money home. I always, even though I got financial aid, I always sent part of that back because I knew my mom needed money. To this day, I send money home. They had poverty and also gender-related inequities, the lack of females in STEM fields, and discriminatory behavior from some male students. So these are some of the things that helped students succeed. One of them is what we call high-impact STEM practices. For example, experiential hands-on learning. We learned from these STEM graduates that one of the things that they liked was not just to learn the ideas and the content and the material, but how do you apply this in real life? How do you take what you've learned and use it and go out there in the field and actually learn and use what you're learning in class and apply it? They loved U.S.-based and international internships, especially when connected with funding. Some people went to D.C., some people went to Spain, these kind of internships where they learned while working. Another thing that helped them were teaching assistantships, working with a faculty member and having a class to teach. Other STEM practices, research assistantships and summer programs. Having research with a faculty member was another important STEM practice, and faculty advising, working with a faculty member who was advising them as they move forward with their STEM degree. So here are some examples of quotes that we got about these high-impact STEM practices. Dana Garcia says, one of the options in the honors program at Texas A&M was to write an honors thesis based on undergraduate research. my roommate suggested that I should approach a professor about the possibility of doing research in her lab. I met with her and she accepted me into the laboratory. Either way, one thing she said stuck with me. In science, 90% of your experiments will fail. She was letting me know that success in science requires perseverance. And Diana Del Angel says, one undergraduate assistant job involved the mapping of vegetation along the Rio Grande River. I would visit sites I would never have visited on my own. Other things that helped these students were financial support, having scholarships, having grants, having the kind of financial aid that would allow them, just with daily life activities, making sure they ate well, that they had a room and a place to stay, etc. Another thing that helped them a great deal were Latino-centered activities and organization. Participation in these clubs and organizations was very important. They mentioned, for example, the Hispanic Ambassadors Program, programs through the American Association for Hispanics in Higher Education, SACNAS, Career Preparation Institute, and SHIP, the Society of Professional Engineers. And what also helped them were early participation in STEM activities like science fairs, MESA, MAS, university visits to promote STEM, and summer science camps. So these activities, these teaching and learning activities, these high-impact practices were very important to these students. But what also helped them were what we call validating experiences. Exactly what Jaime Escalante did. Being there, supporting the students, saying, you can do this. If you have the ganas, if you work hard, if I'm going to be here spending time with you, you can do this. You can do AP Calculus. And so all of these people were validating agents for students, their teachers, their best friends, their parents, their family members, and in college, their mentors, faculty, role models, advisors, and counselors. All of these people are validating agents like Jaime Escalante. And what they did was they encouraged, they inspired, they provided academic advice, they exposed students to STEM, and they provided a network of support. So what I would tell you students back there is find your Jaime Escalante. Find that teacher, that mentor, that advisor who believes in you. You need only one person will make the difference. If you have more, that's great, but it only takes one. It only takes one. Find your Jaime Escalante. So here's some examples of validation. I'm not going to read everything. Stephanie Alvarez Ventura says, STEM was not my passion, but I was very interested in pollution and how it affected the environment. I found myself at the doorstep of the advisor for environmental studies, Dr. Jack Parker. That's her validating agent, Dr. Jack Parker. People tend to choose the path of least resistance, not Parker. I tried selecting the non-science path to an environmental studies degree, but he wouldn't have it. He said I could do science and would make a difference. His next words were, if you do the science, you will have more opportunities and get paid more. And then Rodolfo Jimenez said that his mentor, Dr. Daw, that's his validating agent, he said, you have what it takes to be a scientist. You have what it takes to be a scientist. It was from this moment that I had no doubt that I would be getting my doctoral degree. What also helped were strengths that students had. Strengths that often don't get talked about because people think that individuals from low-income communities have no strengths. Well, flash news, you do. You have a lot of strengths that sometimes you yourself don't acknowledge. Here are the strengths that students talked about. Giving back. One of the things that is important that I've learned, not just from this research, but from other research that I've done, is that students want to earn a degree, not just to hang it in the, up on the wall. I mean, that's nice. But they want to earn a degree to make a difference for others. They want to be role models for other students. They want to make this a better place to live. They want the world to get better. They want to make a difference in people's lives. See, that's why I got a degree. Everything that I do is for students like you. Because if I can make a difference in just one or two of you today, I've done my job. And so many of these students have that same passion to give back. And that is an extremely important strength, because that's going to keep you going, knowing when I get this degree, I'm going to be able to make this world a better place to be. I'm going to help my brothers and sisters and my family believe they can get a college education. I'm going to use what I learn in science to improve the world. Giving back, a great strength. Another strength is a social justice consciousness, the recognition of injustices in society, and saying science and mathematics are connected to eliminating inequality, to promoting fairness and equity, and to advancing humanity. And another tremendous strength is the strength of curiosity. You know, being the why kid of the family, you know, and wanting to know, how do things work? What makes these lights turn on? You know, I mean, why does the moon, you know, come up at night and the sun in the morning? What makes all of that work? That sense of curiosity is very, very important. So here are some quotes from some of these individuals. Marina Suarez, she's now a professor of geology at the University of Texas, San Antonio. She says, it had been my dream since I was a kid to find a dinosaur. She has a twin sister, and they love dinosaurs. And she wanted to be the first person to lay eyes on something that lived millions of years ago. It turns out that the site we visited had many bones, and one of them was named for my twin sister and me. Let me see if I can pronounce this. Geminiraptor Suarezum. So there is a dinosaur name for two Latina women. Can you believe that? I mean, I didn't know that, but there you are. Diana del Ángel says, if I had to summarize my life journey, I would say it was fueled by a need to know. Even as a young girl, I wanted to know what happens when you put a snail, a grasshopper, and a fuzzy worm in the same jar. Curiosity can get you stung by insects or punished by your abuela, but curiosity can also reroute your career life. And then Rodolfo Jimenez says, I was not just interested in learning what I was taught, I wanted to go into further detail as to why it was that way. Between the ages of 5 and 10, I was definitely the why child of the family. And here's some examples of giving back. I'll just read a couple of this. Diana del Ángel says, in the end, I hope to give back to my community and take my learned experiences back to South Texas. And Marina Suarez says, the opportunity to give back to the community that I grew up in has been one of the most rewarding parts of my life, of my job. And I'll just read one here on social justice consciousness. This is a great strength. Elvia Niebla, she worked in D.C., and she says, for me, global change, she's interested in climate change, is the biggest threat to the planet. In fact, the most rewarding aspect of my work has been knowing that I contributed to the progress of humankind, improving the environment and promoting significant research in the field. Other assets, the family, they provided inspiration and the example of hard work. Responsibility, these students were not only in college, but they cared for their siblings, their brothers and sisters at times. They helped their family at home, and they provided financial assistance to the family. Resistance, they learned how to overcome poverty, how to overcome microaggressions, and how to overcome patriarchy. Let me say a bit about microaggressions, because that's kind of a fancy term that many haven't heard of. You know, you hear aggressions, and you know what aggressions are when somebody hits you. You know, when somebody is a bully. Microaggressions are small little aggressions, you know, but they still hurt a lot. Like when you're in college and, you know, your roommate says, you're speaking with an accent. You know, you sound kind of dumb. Or, what is that food you're cooking there? That smells weird. Or, how come you're listening to Spanish music? Those are microaggressions, okay? Some are macro, they're huge. You can actually, if somebody hits you, you know that. But microaggressions can be very damaging as well. These students had some of these microaggressions. Other assets, other strengths, huge strengths, navigational ability. These students figured things out, usually with very little help. They learned the world of college. When I went to college, I didn't know, especially when I transferred to the University of Houston, I was like, wow, this is such a big university. How do I figure this out? But slowly but surely, I learned to know where the offices were that I could go to get, an advisor or financial aid or, tutoring center, whatever. These students figured all of these things out. Not only that, but they learned how to figure the world of America if they were coming as an immigrant. That's huge, coming from Mexico and not knowing the United States, coming from Bolivia and not knowing the United States, coming from El Salvador and not knowing the United States. They figured things out. They have a tremendous asset called navigational ability. And then they had what Jaime Escalante calls ganas, the passion, the drive, the determination that you really want to do this. That's very, very important. And also, you got to have smarts to do STEM. You got to be, you have to have some smarts. These are not easy courses that you'll be taking. And these students had those smarts. Other things that helped are what we call Latino cultural pedagogics. Things in the family that these students saw that they said, wow, I remember this because I saw this in my family and it helped me to be the person that I am today. And I remember my mom, for example, working so hard at night and coming home, and all she wanted to do was sleep. So she slept most of the day. But I saw that work ethic, and I said, I want to work as hard as my mom and as hard as my dad in construction. And the same thing here. They witnessed the family's strength in action. They developed an ethic of hard work. They had the cariño from the familia, and they had family moral and practical guidance that helped them to develop that will to succeed in the future. So here are just some examples of what I mean. Let me do the bottom two. Elvia Niebla says, obviously my family, especially my mother and my aunts, influenced my life. Tia Chuli was a strong, opinionated woman who held her own in political debates and who read to me from literary and political works. She was my role model. And then Samarthi Quiñones Soto says, my father loved exploring local marine life. From a very early age, he would take me snorkeling and taught me about the diverse and fragile marine ecology. Through my father, I gained my deep respect and appreciation for zoology and biodiversity. And what I learned as I read the impact of the family, the extended family as well, on these students, it occurred to me that, maybe these students didn't have the best libraries or the best laboratories, but they had Tia Chuli. They had the father who went and taught the young lady marine biology. They had the work ethic of the family. And they relied on those strengths. If they have nothing else, they're going to rely on the strengths that are put in front of them to move forward and to persist and to ultimately succeed in higher education. So, I've got news for you students. If you've been told you can't do this, I'm going to tell you that you can. If you've been told that because you have adversities and challenges in your life, you're never going to succeed, I'm going to tell you that you can. Because these individuals are just like you, and they were able to succeed. So this is the way they did it. They succeeded through that example of the family. They succeeded with their own strengths. They succeeded because they had all of these validating agents working with them. They had their Jaime Escalantes. They succeeded because of those activities, learning activities, those STEM high-impact practices that made such a difference in their lives. They succeeded because they had financial support. They succeeded because they got early exposure to STEM. And they succeeded because they participated in Latino-centered organizations and activities. This is how they got their STEM degree. If you take, one or two of those out, it's going to complicate their lives. So the counter story, the opposite story, when people say you can't make it, I'm going to say perseverance alone. If you believe that perseverance alone accounts for success, that's not true. Perseverance is important, but all of these other things I just showed you are super important as well. Some people say Latino students are not academically proficient and cannot succeed in STEM. That's also not true. Some people say that individual effort and achievement alone propels students to succeed. That's also not true. It's not true that the only people who can succeed have some kind of inborn superintelligence or super strength. And it's not true that all Latino families do not care about their children's educational pursuits. So the recommendations that I have for those of you who are faculty and staff is to play to students' strengths, especially the assets of giving back, of social justice consciousness and curiosity. Involve students in deep learning activities. There's so many things that are happening in the world right now where students can make a difference. Did you know that there's a city, the first city in the world to run out of water next month? Do you know what city that is? Cape Town. Close. I visited Cape Town in 1999. It's a beautiful city. They're the first, and I'm going to tell you that they're not going to be the last. We need scientists to help us with issues such as that. In this community, you've got the Rio Grande, and there's lots of things going on there besides immigration. You've got water quality. You've got, the soil, the erosion. You've got the fish. Give students projects in their communities that can help them see that what they're learning is actually making a difference. You have lots of diabetes in South Texas. You have cancer. And as a doctor told me yesterday, you even have a lot of loneliness. You have mental health issues. We need scientists to help us to address these issues in a constructive fashion. Give students projects where they can take what they're learning in ways that they can make a difference. Professional development to faculty and staff to work with students from low-income communities to learn how to do these kinds of projects, to learn how to work with STEM high-impact practices. And then create student success centers focused on STEM. I know we have some here at LCC, probably at TAMIU. I met Diana Lizaguirre at a STEM conference in Irvine last month, and she's got something called Cal Nerds at Berkeley. And she provides undergraduate students in STEM with opportunities in undergraduate research, higher education and graduate school readiness, career preparation, diversity leadership, and community service. And of course, focus on early preparation for STEM. Work with high schools and middle schools to help students get early exposure and interest in STEM fields. I want to end with this beautiful quote from Samantha Quiñones Soto. And she says, in 2011, I completed my graduate degree after many years of hard work. The first calls I made the day I received my PhD degree were to my abuelas, to whom I shouted, "Yo soy doctora." Those were heavy words. They recapped all the tears, all my struggles in graduate school, and the time away from my family. They also meant I had achieved a lifetime goal, and I had made my family proud. When you finish your degrees, you will make your family proud, your brothers and sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents. You will make your family proud, and most of all, you will be the next leaders, the next científicos latinos in American society, destined to shape the world and to make it better. Thank you so much. Good luck with everything. Thank you.
We're going to follow with Dr. Gates, who is going to be speaking about affinity research groups, identifying and belonging through the affinity research group model. She's also a very well-known researcher. She's also the leader of computing alliances for Hispanic serving institutions. And I don't want to rush her. She's got plenty of time. So welcome, Dr. Gates.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and talk to you. Wanted to give you a really quick background of where I came from. I grew up in El Paso, family of 5. My mother had an 8th grade education. My father had a year of college before he joined the Navy. But what they had aspired for their children was that we would all graduate from college and that we couldn't get married until the 3 females could not get married until they had their college degree. So we all got our college degree, got married, a month later for most of us. But I was really inspired. So I got my degree, but I was inspired to go on to get my PhD when I was at the age of 40, because I heard a talk about the low number of Hispanics in the computer science STEM fields, but in computer science, which was my passion. And so there were only 6% Hispanics at that time in computer science. At the PhD level, only 2% were female. So I wondered why, and then I thought, wait a minute, I'm one of those people who could have gone on but never did. And it was mainly because of lack of confidence. But through encouragement of faculty, as you said, Dr. Rendon, that's what inspired me to move on. So my passion has really been about making a difference. So I wanted to first give a background of the Computing Alliance because it really frames a context for the work that I do. Then I'll talk about creating environments of inclusion and belonging through the models that we have come up with. So the Computing Alliance of Hispanic Serving Institutions was founded in 2004 with National Science Foundation funding, with the sole purpose to recruit, retain, and advance Hispanics in computing. So what we did is we brought together HSIs around the country. There were 7 of us at the time, from California all the way to Puerto Rico, Florida, Puerto Rico, California, New Mexico, and Texas. We worked with industry partners, professional organizations such as SACNAS, MAIAS, Latinas in Computing, and others. We wanted to build a social science network. But what we are founded on is that we believe that preparing Hispanic students with the technical qualifications and the real world experiences can shape the future of computing. You bring a diverse voice that impacts what we do with our technology. Growing a geographically dispersed network of partners can achieve lasting results. We cannot do it alone. We have to work together. We can't change the numbers if we stay in our silos. And then ensuring inclusiveness must accompany diversity. When you look at our effective practices, they go across this whole continuum, really starting with students coming into the major. At this time, we were focused mainly on higher ed. So we knew that a lot of students, because of the digital divide, did not have experiences, especially female students. Do not have the experiences with computing. So we started a program called SIA Zero that was preparing students to succeed in the major. Peer-led team learning is another highly effective practice. And then student advocates. Those are undergraduate students such as yourself, those of you that are in the STEM major, that would work with other students to get them involved in organizations, opportunities for scholarships, conferences, and so forth. In the middle is what we were doing to encourage students to move on into graduate school. Affinity research groups, which I'll be talking about in a minute, something called FellowNet, where we bring students together to put together competitive scholarships. What we have heard is that many times, even though students are highly capable, many times it's about selling yourself. And how do we work with you to sell your experiences so that you can be competitive? And then something called Mentor Grad. On the right, it's around preparing faculty, especially those, all faculty, but especially faculty that are Hispanic, so that they can succeed and move through the whole tenure process. So we mainstream mentoring. We're building these structures and networks that have systemic academic initiatives. And I wanted to say that when we started as an alliance, what we did is that we started working with the different institutions, looking at what worked at your institution to help students become successful. And then we took those practices, and then other institutions adopted them. We had the social scientists look at what was working and whether it transferred to other institutions. And these are the ones that really stood out. And there were some statistically significant differences. So the Includes program at NSF is funding this particular conference. So I wanted to take a moment to provide that context. So the director of NSF decided that in spite of all that has been going on all these years, there has not been a difference in the numbers. They're not changing fast enough. So what she has done is that she made one of her top 10 ideas around creating these inclusive and includes environment around inclusion. What can we do as a group to make things move faster? So you'll see it's bringing together dedicated partners, finding the approaches that work, and then building a nation when everyone has opportunities in STEM. And this is what CASI is founded on, is working as a collective. So this is using collective impact, which means that you have common measures, you have a common agenda, you have reinforcing activities, you have continuous communication, and then you have a backbone that is going to help you achieve that. So what you see on the map on the right is CASI today. This is a census map that shows a concentration of Hispanics. The darker purple, higher concentrations. You can see we went from 7 to 15, and then with the Includes pilot, we were able to more than double that. So we ran pilots in California, New Mexico. We have always had representation in South Texas. As you can see, Florida, Puerto Rico, Northeast, you can barely see it, and up in the Kane University in New Jersey. What we did with the pilot is that we started to bring together groups locally, so more hubs together to start looking at the localized context. So bringing people together from the community, moving into the community colleges where we hadn't been before, but also bringing in economic development groups, even the high schools, to start looking at what can we do to come together to actually change the numbers. As we came together, we defined this vision through a number of convenings that lasted over a year. We defined a vision that by 2030, Hispanics will represent 20% or more of those who earn credentials in computing. And so we changed that to credentials because we know at the community college it's really important to have certificates, and that's considered success, certainly. But also, we define credentials as anything that provides you gainful employment and the opportunity to advance. Our mission is to grow this network community on recruiting, retaining, and advancing Hispanics. So our goals are as follows. CASI, we want to challenge Hispanics students' knowledge, skills, and abilities so they're positioned to thrive. It goes back to the keynote talk and where it was said that we want to raise students to the highest level that they can because everyone is capable of succeeding. Everyone is capable of going beyond what they even think that they can do with their studies. We want to support pedagogical and professional growth for those who impact Hispanics, not just faculty, but professional staff, everyone that encounters students. How do we work to build their growth? Expand meaningful partnerships that align with strategic, regional, and national efforts, and then inform policy through evidence. This is what we came up with. I hope you can see it. Our original goal was really to increase the number of students who went into graduate programs. But as we started working with the community colleges, we really realized that success is at all levels, and that our students come in and out of the workforce, mainly due to financial reasons, and that we should celebrate that. That is a success. So you can see here that we have the 2-year colleges, certificates, associates going into the workforce, but you'll see the double arrow that telling you that, they come back, students come back, professionals come back into the academic pipeline. So you'll see bridging. We recognize that bridging between each of these transitions are important. Understanding career preparation and what you can do with your college degrees is really important. So we have focus on recruitment, career preparation, professional development, retention, and then also all of the career development. So those are where our focus is. Since this, we also have added K through 12, because K through 12 is also very important. So here are some highlights of what we have accomplished. What you can see on the right-hand side is we took, in 2002, that's where the big dip in computer science degrees. There was a big height, and then there was the dot-com decline. And so we took that, and then we're looking at the percentage of growth after that point in time. And so the national IPEDS numbers for the national degrees awarded in computer science is on the bottom, and you can see that the CASI institutions have been successful in retaining of increasing graduation. We are doing curriculum development with Google. We have started developing problem-solving courses because we have heard from industry it's really important that students learn very explicitly how to solve problems. Problem solving is huge. So we have developed with 3 other institutions one-credit problem-solving courses that are given early in a student's career in computer science. So we're getting ready to launch that in January through Google. Google will be promoting it. The Army Research Lab, we have been focused on developing cybersecurity workshops, and we're hoping to develop a whole thread in cybersecurity across a lot of our community colleges and our 4-year colleges. We were recognized in 2015 as a bright spot in Hispanic education by the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics, and we also are included in Excellencia What Works database. So let's go on to what we're doing with Affinity Research Group. So it's one of our effective practices. The model is considered a comprehensive model that creates and maintains dynamic, productive, and inclusive research groups. So we started out with really focusing on undergraduate research. As it was said earlier, this is really important for our students to see themselves as scientists, computer scientists, and to move forward in what they do with their career. So we involve the deliberate design of research groups around a common purpose or affinity. So the important thing here is deliberate design. It's very deliberate in what we do, and I'll explain that in a second. We want to have this conscious development of students' skills at all levels, communication, technical, and research, and this provides students with a sense of professional identity and belonging. So while we started it under research, we have received a lot of funding from NSF to disseminate this. It has been adopted by people in nursing that use it in a practicum class. It's used in project classes. It's been used in a science and math tutor and learning center. So it has applications really beyond research. And it provides a really excellent model for how you work with people in teams. So what you see on the left-hand side was motivated by the work of Carlos Rodriguez, who talked about why we lose Hispanics in STEM areas. And what his research showed at the time was that a lack of student culture, faculty and student interaction outside the classroom is extremely important for student retention. There's a lack of mentors and role models. And then students do not always set clear goals, and when they don't attain those goals, they tend to drop out. We recognize the importance of developing research and technical skills and then communication skills. So when we look at the ARG model, we call it a non-hierarchical model. And the reason that we say that is because many research groups are built around a PhD student working with the master's students who work with the undergraduate students. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to integrate so that everyone is coming in with some level of experiences that contributes to the group as a whole. So there are no hierarchies. And so it's a collection of best practices. So when you start looking at the model, you start seeing that there are things that you may already do with your student teams, but it's really just a compendium of best practices. It's built on cooperative group interaction. Again, I'm going to say it's deliberate, intentional development of skills, and then there's support structures. So our whole philosophy is that you cannot expand participation. If we start talking about broadening participation, then we have to include those who are normally not involved. So it's not about the best and the brightest, which has always been the case. Faculty are always looking for which is the best students, and I want them in my group. And this model is finding those students that show the capability, maybe not the confidence, and develop them. I remember when I first started this, faculty started coming up to me and saying, "You're getting all the best students." And I came back and say, no, these are the students that weren't involved before. We involved them, and then we have made them the best students, because students will rise to the occasion when challenged. So the basis for this is on situated learning. So we learn when we're situated in a special context. This comes from Leib and Winger's model, that it's built on practice, that you learn by doing, and we heard that already. How important that is, by providing meaning, so it's through the experiences, building community, and then also having identity, learning by becoming. So you become a scientist when you're being treated as a scientist in a context that's meaningful to you. So it's really about contextualizing what you're learning, and that's really important when you start talking about retention. Students have to be able to have a context for understanding why it's important to do what they're doing and being able to understand how it might make a difference. So localizing the context is something I'm going to emphasize. When we talk about research groups, the model we always have an annual orientation. We repeat that orientation even if they're to the students that have been in the group for a couple of years. They still go. It's around understanding our philosophy and why we're doing it. So we actually talk to students about the low numbers of students in STEM or computing, whatever your field is. Because students get shocked when they say, really, that's what the numbers are? That's why I went back to get my PhD. As I said, I went back at the age of 40. I graduated at the age of 45. With the PhD, because I just needed that particular boost, and it was just hearing the numbers that made me realize that I could actually be part of changing those numbers. So it's important that students understand the global context and why it's important to seek a degree in STEM. So we talk about basic group and research skills. You have regular meetings where students are continually asked to articulate and use the language, because they have to understand the domain and learn the language of whatever field you're in. So we provide opportunities for students to be presenting, receiving feedback, gently being corrected if they need to. Project management is really important. So part of the model is helping students learn how to set clear goals and objectives, having well-defined activities and deliverables. What we see a lot before this model is faculty bringing in students and then not really talking to them till the end of the semester and then saying, oh, the student didn't do anything. Well, if you're not setting goals and setting, deliverables and timelines and meeting with them, well, of course, is what will happen. And then, of course, we have these workshops around deliberate development of skills. In the center, what we have found is that core purpose, why you're coming together is really important, and then building the connectedness among the students. So the foundation for the model is cooperative, has cooperative learning underlining it. And this comes from Johnson & Johnson's work out of Minnesota. So when you think about teams, I want you to think about this for a second. What have been your experiences? What was present that made it work well, and what happened that didn't make it work well? So if you were to think about that for a minute, and I give a lot of workshops, I bring this into my project class and teach them this. The number one thing I hear is that I did all the work, or two of us did all the work, and no one else did the work. There was, no communication. The quality was bad. It was always very negative. And so the important thing is you have to structure how you work in teams. And this is really the foundation, to be honest with you. This has led me to what I do, whether it's in faculty meetings, as a chair, or whatever I do. I always built it around this cooperative model. And there's these 5 elements that make it up. We call it pig's face because it helps you remember it. So it's around positive independence, individual accountability, group processing, professional skills, and face-to-face promotive interaction. And I'll talk about each of those in a minute. But remember that pig's face is really what makes you successful working in teams, regardless of what it is, a committee, a project class, in-class work, research groups. So the first one is positive interdependence. Unless you bring people together around a common goal, you will not have everyone wanting to achieve. We all swim or we sink together. So it's about you coming around a common purpose, everyone wanting to be there. If that's not the case, your team will not work. You have to have an identity. And it's not that I did this in the team. It's around we did it, right? It has to be around what you're doing as a collective. And so you always give accolades to those around you. You have to have mutual goals, shared resources, and assigned roles is what gets you there. So individual accountability, the number one thing. You have to, even though you're working as a group and the success of the group is as a whole, you still have to be individually accountable for what you bring to the group. And so every member has to be responsible for something. And you can't allow people to not contribute their piece. That has to be an agreement from the beginning. So you structure it by reporting out, by asking someone to present something. And you can only have so many excuses. As I tell my students, I understand that you'll have something like an exam coming up that you may not be able to contribute. But your members have to understand that, and the next time you are going to do a little bit more. So you want to assign concrete tasks and deadlines, and then the person that is part of a group has to be able to express the perspectives of the whole group because you're part of a bigger team. Next, it's around face-to-face promotive interaction. You have to acknowledge people who are on the team and let them know that you appreciate what they've done and what they have contributed. So you celebrate successes. And you can provide constructive critique because you need to let people know what needs to be improved, but acknowledge contributions. When you're on a committee and no one turns to you and says, thank you for doing what you did, or I appreciate what you have contributed to the group, what happens? I mean, you just drop out. Why am I doing the work if it's not being integrated, if it's not being appreciated? So this is really essential. And then last is group processing. Well, it's not last, next to last. But group processing really is one of the most important things. And I didn't realize this when I first adopted this model. But this kind of goes back to the model, Deming's model, plan, do, act, check. What worked, what didn't work, and what can we improve, and what do we do next? So when you look at your whatever group you're working with, whatever team you're working with, you want to sit back and reflect, okay, why didn't this work? What happened? And as a team, you should sit down and think about this. In my classes, after a big deliverable, I ask my students to submit individually these questions, and then I look at them, and then I see several things that typically arise. One is not everyone is pulling their weight. People are not coming to the team meetings on time. We don't have enough face-to-face team meetings. They're kind of fall into the same category. And then I sit back and work with them and saying, okay, if you can't make face-to-face, let's start using videos. This is how you can use it. Or you need to set meeting minutes. You have to have an agenda. Make sure you honor that agenda. There's things that we do to correct what is not working in the team. So John Deming said, we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. And this is one of the most important things I think you should remember. It's part of, as we're building these communities, one of the critical things in an improvement community is around reflection. Gathering the data, looking at the data, and then figuring out why things are not working. So this is where we start talking about deliberate development of skills. We talk about the social and professional skills. We cannot assume that students come into any group, whether it's research or a project team, knowing what they need to know. So we want to know that we have to teach those skills. When we teach skills, we want to teach students the phrases that they should be using. We want to practice it in an intentional manner. So I'm going to talk about skills that are around inclusion. So some of these are very basic skills. When you look at the model, and we do workshops on this if you're interested, but the model comes from just basic skills. There's like 3-4 levels of skills. So the very lowest skills around active participation. Are people in your team actually actively participating? Are their voices heard? Or is someone dominating the group? So when we talk about giving them specific cues, we talk about what would you say if you had the role of checking active participation? You would be saying, what is your opinion, Maria? I haven't heard from you. What do you think of this? So we start giving the students the actual verbal cues of what has to be said. If we're talking about probing questions, we say, what does it mean to ask a probing question? It's not yes or no question. It should be asking the speaker to give more detail. So we start cueing them. It starts with a how. It starts with a what. Can you compare? So that students start learning how you ask questions, because that's a very part of inquiry, right? So, but around inclusion, it's active participation, active listening. How many times have you talked to someone, you can tell that they're not even thinking about what you're saying, they're thinking about what they're going to say next. So one of the things that we work on is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is around hearing someone present an opinion to you and you being able to give it back to them. And then they're able to say, yes, that's what I meant. Because many times what people mean and what you hear are two different things. So the skill of paraphrasing is really important. Summarizing at the end of the meeting, so what I hear from my students, we end the meeting and we're not sure about what everyone's going to do. Well, because you need a summarizer. A summarizer is a role that you give someone that at the end of the meeting they summarize what the meeting was about and what is the next steps. Perspective taking, important. Constructive critique. An integrator is a higher level thinking skills. It's where you take a bunch of different opinions and bring them all together and present it as one. So you integrate it, you integrate everyone's thoughts. So those are many of this. There's so many other skills. And what we do is we pick a skill and then practice it with students. And then pretty soon, students start understanding that these are important skills for working in a group. When we talk about research, we talk about writing personal statements, being able to write an abstract, submitting a successful GRFP packet. So this is research funding students to go to graduate school, master's or PhD, that pays you around $36,000 a year. Travel, books, tuition, it's a fantastic opportunity. If you're involved in undergraduate research, I encourage you to apply. It's usually in October, but we run workshops on how to put together a successful packet. And it's around constructive critique. Constructive critique, students, we cue you on what you should be putting in your packet. It's around writing it, reviewing it, getting a critique, we review it again, and we identify different faculty members who go through the packets. And we have seen a big uptick at UTEP in the number of fellowships that we're receiving by doing this. Setting clear goals and objectives is another nice activity. So we have all of these documented. You're able to download. Some of them are on the web. But it's important that you really start thinking about how you can develop your students. Now, when we talk about skills, there's different levels you go through. So the first one is where you're an unconscious incompetent. You don't know that you don't know how to practice a particular skill. I mean, many of you may not even think that active listening is an important skill, or summarizing, or any of these. Then, with the model, you become conscious and competent. So remember I said that we start cueing you. We say, okay, for you to ask a probing question, it should start with this. Let's practice that. So students are consciously thinking, okay, is this a probing question or not? Because we actually go through an activity. Is it probing? Is it not probing? And they write memos with questions, and there's a ton of things you can do. But they have to consciously think about it. Then they get to the point where they're conscious competent. So they're actually in a meeting thinking, okay, I need to make sure everyone's participating. I need to paraphrase and let people know I'm listening. I'm consciously thinking about it. But then you get to the point where you're unconscious competent. You don't even think about it, you just do it. It's how you work in a team and how you work cooperatively. So I'm going to finish by talking about some other things when we talk about inclusion and belonging that we are promoting within CASI. But one of the things is about gauging student climate. I think one of the things that's truly missing is that we don't understand student voices, and we can't understand student voices unless we either are doing focus groups or putting forward a climate study. We did this recently in our department, and were surprised. Faculty were surprised when some students said that they felt like their opinions were not valued within the class, or that they were not being treated fairly. And so we think it's really important to work with students in a really thoughtful way, deliberate way, so that we can start looking at student identity and what are the students' opinions and decisions that are made in the department. The second point is around engaging faculty in doing this, because we're not going to make a difference unless the environment is ripe. The environment is a good environment for students to feel successful. We're really pushing an asset-based approach, and we want faculty involved in that. Not a chair or not a dean coming down and saying this is what has to happen, but the engagement of faculty. And this is something that we just started. Faculty looking at the surveys and saying what else needs to be there, what else would you like to know about our students. They start owning what is being given back to them. And then we have discussions around what we learn from the students and what our steps as a collective is to address retention or inclusiveness within our department. The other thing is around workshops. The TAs are really important. So we've started TA training that's much more deliberate on inclusion, how you are working with students, identifying students that are not attending so that they know immediately that you're aware that they're not attending a lab and that you want to personally reach out and find out what's going on in their life. What can we do to help you succeed? So our message is always around student success. If students are left to their own and say, oh, I didn't go and no one really bothered to mention it to me, they're going down the wrong path. So we start working now. I've given all our TAs a directive that if a student has missed more than one class, the professor needs to know, and also I need to know. The second thing is that they are not turning in the labs or they're not doing well in the labs. We need to do an intervention right away. So we're not going to wait till they receive that D or F. So this is around the training that we're doing. We're bringing in instructional assistants. We have peer mentors that are near peers. They're not grading. All they're doing is helping students succeed in the class. That's been highly successful. We've seen across all the CASI institutions statistically significant differences in retention because of that. Culture and identity is important, celebrating students' assets. So when we're working with students on going forward, going into a competitive interview with Microsoft or Google, and we're working with Google on this, is students don't realize the assets that they bring. So when we talk to the students and say that being bilingual is an asset, especially for a global company, students are shocked. And I say, no, absolutely, you need to talk about the fact that you're bilingual, that you have family in Mexico, that you understand the culture, because when you talk to Google, Microsoft, Facebook, any of these, I probably shouldn't say Facebook today, but any of these other companies, they're really looking for that perspective. It's very important to sell yourself. So we have workshops on how to sell yourself and your ideas, how to understand your assets. So we're focused a lot on that. The other thing is bringing identity and belonging into the pedagogy. So we are wanting to build students' identity as a computer scientist in our case, but seeing it as a possible self. When I was in school, everyone was from Europe. That was my professor. And then when I was in the PhD program, the chair of the department came up to me and said, "Ann, did you know all the great computer scientists have beards?" And I went like, oh my gosh, okay, what am I going to do about that? When I got my PhD, my kids made me a cake and drew my face and put cotton, little, cotton balls and said, "Okay, Mom, you have a beard now." So I call myself the bearded lady. But anyway, it's around those messages. They're subtle messages, microaggressions, as we heard earlier. But situate learning in a meaningful context. Can you provide labs that are, and I think a lot of that is going on here, certainly, so that students identify with it, identify with what it means something to them. So there's local references, and then social impact is important. And then celebrate culture through experiences. One of the things that we started doing in our department is that we started doing Dia de los Muertos celebration. And it brought everyone together, all the faculty. Faculty are now that are not from Hispanic heritage. They're understanding now the importance of this celebration. We honored the female students, honored the female computer scientists. And then they did the Calaveras contest where they honored faculty and other influencers in their life. And so that was really a really nice event. We also started to have a film series in computer science. So we brought in Hidden Figures, imitation games, so that students could listen to hear the movie and then talk to, afterwards we had social scientists asking about students' own experiences. And so this was able to bring out students talking about how they were told they wouldn't be successful in biomedical engineering was one story I heard. It was very moving to hear someone say that this is what I was told by an advisor, that I would not be successful. But I persisted, and now I'm getting ready to graduate. So this was a way indirectly to have faculty here and really making it something that wasn't being told, right, to you. You're not doing this, or you should do this, or whatever. Of course, always bring people around food. So, and that's the end of my talk. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Right now, just a reminder that there are bathrooms on the right of the building for women. The men's bathroom is on this side. We're going to be listening to our students, our Maya students. You've already listened to that. The Mexican American or Latinos in engineering and science students from Laredo Community College. I think they also have a videotape. So Rosemary and Gerardo Riojas are sponsors, and we have some students that are going to be presented.
Hello everyone, my name is Raul Reyes.
Good morning everyone. My name is Gerardo Riojas. I'm one of the sponsors for the MAES chapter here at OCC, Latinos in Science and Engineering. I'm also the LEAPS Data Retention Specialist, which stands for Leadership Excellence and Academic Excellence in STEM. Right now we're going to be showcasing a video from the MAES president at University of Texas, El Paso. We gave him a set of questions and he decided to select this question. What experiences in or out of school have prepared you for the STEM degree you are currently pursuing?
Hello everyone, my name is Raul Reza and I'm the president of the University of Texas at El Paso MAES SHIP Joint Chapter. And I'm here to talk to you about the experiences in and out of school that are going to help you throughout your STEM degree. And the first one that I want to talk about are student organizations. Obviously, as president of MAES and SHIP, which is an interdisciplinary organization every major can join, we try to help everyone make connections, networking with professional development, leadership development, and that's something that is going to make you a well-rounded individual, which on the long run is going to help you a lot as a STEM professional. The other thing that I want to mention about student orgs is not only join interdisciplinary organizations, also join one specific for your major. As an example, I have also been in the past an officer for ASME, which is the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And there I have developed a lot of relationships, network with a lot of my peers, and there's a couple of them that have already graduated, they have jobs, so you can always reach out to them, see if they're hiring, and that's going to help you a lot. From here, I also want to make a point about mentorship, and getting a mentor is going to be a defining moment for you as a STEM as an individual in STEM. Here, you can always go to that mentor if you have questions about school, about your academics, and I do recommend that this mentor is on your field of study, maybe a year or two ahead of you, because that way he has already gone through the classes. Here at UTEP, we also ask some other students about what professors to take, which professors they like the most, and in this way, the mentors can help you a lot. And not only they can help you with your academics and doubts you have with school, but also in your personal life. You can also always go to them, asking for questions, asking for advice. Maybe they have already gone into internships. You can talk to them about how to get them, how to become a better, well-rounded individual. And the last one I want to add is for tutoring. It's key that if you're struggling with a class, that you ask for help. It's, for example, here at UTEP we have ACES, which is a center where all the engineering students, we can go and ask for tutoring in our major classes as well as the math classes. So, STEM is a pretty challenging field, so don't feel ashamed or anything of asking help with your classes. It's completely normal. We've all struggled at one point. So those are the three lessons, the three things that I want to leave you guys with to join student organizations in your field, as well as another one where your major doesn't matter, and also look for a mentor, which will help you a lot, and to go for tutoring if you're struggling with your classes. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Rosemary Agüero. I am also one of the sponsors for the Mayas chapter. Really quickly, Mayas here at our campus does a lot of things for our students, offers them scholarship opportunities, internships opportunities, but most importantly, the opportunity to explore other universities. I know previously mentioned most of the time, students, how they said, how can a student from Laredo get the opportunity to get a degree? Most of our students that have come through the Mayas chapter have never been out of Laredo. So that we take great pride in that with the Mayas chapter to give them the opportunity to explore other universities and other cities. One thing that we did differently with our chapter is that we opened up an invitation to all students on campus. Most students think, oh, it says Mayas Engineering and Science. We opened that up a couple of years ago to offer this opportunity to students interested in criminal justice, political science, business. So any student on campus is welcomed to join our organization. We do have a few of our students, apart from the two speakers that we will have, speak to you guys in a bit in the audience. So if I can get the Maya students that are here to please stand. Thank you, guys. Now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our Vice President of Events, Ms. Yamile Garcia, and our President, LCC Mayas Chapter President, Francisco Gallardo, so they can share a few of their stories with you guys. I know it's always best to hear it from students, so I'm going to hand over the podium to them. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Agüero, for a brief introduction. My name is Yamile Garcia, and welcome here again in Laredo Community College. The Laredo Community College Leaps and Mayas chapter provides students both educational and financial support. Both programs have helped me in many things, among them academic advising. What I enjoy most about my involvement here in the program is the one-on-one session that each student has with an advisor. My advisors do not only help me with registering for classes, but assist me in applying for scholarships, internships, essay revisions, and even the transfer process. Through actively participating in these programs, I can easily go to the tutoring lab where I can engage in peer-to-peer tutoring. Use equipment there such as computers, graphic calculators, smart boards, along with many others. In addition, Leaps and Mayas have helped me and many other students to develop communication skills. Since there are several organizations to join, students feel more welcomed and create a tight family bond. Most of the friendships I have acquired during my studies here at Laredo Community College are due to the sense of belonging I got while being part of these programs. And because of these programs, I have become more outgoing and involved around campus and in my community. Most importantly, these programs have helped me to remain motivated to continue my studies, allowing me to enhance my confidence and my persona. I speak for the majority of my peers who share this sentiment. I can affirm that Leaps and Mayas have changed my college career. Thank you, everyone. Now I will pass the mic to Francisco, my peer. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Francisco Gallardo and I'm the Laredo Community College Mayas Chapter President. And today I want to talk to you about my experience with the STEM program. At Laredo Community College, as part of the STEM articulations, I've been able to build an exemplary curriculum that has opened many doors for me throughout the years. My most significant endeavor as a college student, thanks in large part to the program and Dr. Nora Garza, was my nomination to be a participant in the national televised competition in Nashville, Tennessee. I was one of the 9 students in the United States selected to compete this past July, in the 2017 Hispanic College Quiz hosted by Hispanic Associations of Colleges and Universities, also known as HACU. Even though I had such a stressful time filming the competition, it was the best experience I've ever had in my life. I placed third. I was awarded on a scholarship, and I won a trip to the HACU 31st Annual Conference in San Diego, California. Thank you. I never thought I would be chosen to participate in such a prestigious event, but I believe in myself, gave my heart and soul, and achieved what I thought was impossible. Participating in the Hispanic College Quiz made me proud to represent my institution. When I got informed I was nominated, I was amazed that somebody had thought of me as a candidate. I felt special because somebody saw the determination in me. The day I was elected as a participant, I realized I was one of the 9 competitors nationwide and the only one from my hometown. I wasn't sure if I wanted to participate, as it sounded intimidating. I felt a bit stressed since the competition was going to be airing on national television. With the help of my advisors, I was able to overcome my fears and exceeded during the competition. The STEM program has prepared me for this challenge and gave me the essential tools to succeed. The program has changed my life by giving me the opportunity to represent my institution, city, and state in a national competition. It made me proud of who I am and of what I have accomplished in such a little time. It also made me realize that I can achieve everything if I'm passionate about it. Furthermore, the STEM program has reinforced my commitment and dedication to my studies. The countless opportunities, family-like atmosphere, and caring staff have been instrumental in my academic success. I am grateful to have been able to participate in such a great program. Once again, thank you to all the STEM staff and Dr. Nora Garza for making these programs available for all students. And on behalf of the LCC Mass chapter, I thank you all for giving us the opportunity to share our experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're so happy to have our students being able to share, and for our evaluators and our consultants. The students have also distributed the quantitative, the surveys that are for students that they have prepared, and they'll be turning them over to us so that we can actually review them and also provide insights into our report for the National Science Foundation on the things that they have seen have helped them to be successful, and some things that maybe stand in the way and some barriers, but that turn into opportunities that NSF can help us address.